after last night's second pass, I started noticing there's a quite loud tapping, ticking noise. Sounded like valve train issue. Not 100% sure. Also had a deal with the flex plate. It's a little bit bent and it was contacting the flywheel. I'm just looking around. I'm checking rockers and all that. I don't see anything obvious. The ones I can check right now, they're all in lash. It is possible though, you start putting a lot of boost to it, it starts pushing the torque converter forward, and it pushes the flex plate. The gap on the starter is very small between the flex plate and the starter. So that could be the issue, but I'm going to pull the other side off and just give it a good once over, make sure nothing looks crazy under there. It still ran and everything. Pulling it out of the trailer last night, I could hear a tiny little tick every now and again, which makes me think that it could potentially be that flex plate. So under here, you can see how close the flex plate is to that starter gear. And if the converter pushes forward any, especially under boost, then it can start contacting that. I've already seen firsthand where it does rub on it, and I took a pry bar and the spot that looked like it was waving in where it was bent, I just pried it across there and bent it back out. So that might not have been the best way to fix what was going on, but we'll check the other side valve cover anyways. Alright, so under the driver's side, looks like at least this rocker and maybe this one is way too tight. So I'm going to check all of these and make sure they're in lash. I don't know, whenever the motor got warm last time at the track, maybe the issue. I don't know, I'll check over all of them and just make sure nothing else is looking weird. But you have a rocker that's lashed too tight, it can hang open valves. You can lose power, all sorts of things can happen. So definitely want to make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to. So I'm gonna check all these and see what's going on. The other issue having last night was during the pass, the first second to 2 seconds, the oil pressure was good. It was about 98, 99 pounds of oil pressure, and then going down the track around the 8th mile, the oil pressure starts going down. It goes from 90, 98 pounds of oil pressure down to 56 pounds at the end of the pass. So two things could be happening. One is it's running out of oil. The oil is staying up in the valve covers and it's not draining down into the pan where the pickup can pick it up and send it through the pump and everything. The other issue could be that the oil is being churned and it's getting aerated. So if there's a lot of air in the oil, you still have oil pressure, but then you have the air that gets mixed up in it. Oil, any fluid doesn't compress, air does, so you can have fluctuating oil pressure, and you don't want air in your oil because you've got air in the oil. There's no lubrication with air. So I think I may end up pulling the oil pan and going with a different design. The only issue is the pan I'm using is a 7.5 inch depth, which was the stock depth for it, and I built that belly pan and everything flush with the bottom of the car. So I don't want the oil pan going any lower than that. Even if I did, I'd have to get a new oil pump that's long enough to pick up that oil with, like, say, an 8 1/4 depth pan. But Marissa makes some pretty nice ones that already have the bungs on the side for, like, oil return for turbos and stuff like that. So it might be something that I look into. If I can find one at 7.5 inches depth, then I would definitely get that. So far, I haven't been able to find anything that's that shallow. That's like a dedicated drag race pan that has, you know, the baffling and the windage tray and all that. So I'm gonna keep looking on that. I'll probably check the oil filter. I mean, I know some of the oil or some of the contamination, like the look like aluminum or bearing material, comes from this cam sink whenever I'm putting it in and out, because it takes forever to get in there. I'm trying to get it in there and it's scraping and stuff, and it produces these little fine particulates of aluminum that look just like bearing material. So I know for a fact that was causing contamination in oil, where I'd done that like 5 times, you know, sit there for 10 minutes trying to get that thing in there and scraping it on the block. And it's got little tiny pieces of aluminum that the oil filter catches. So it's hard to say without actually, you know, dropping a main cap or a rod cap and seeing, you know, what the bearing condition looks like. I've decided to kind of plot the rear end and everything. I set the car on jack stands right there, and found pretty much the center of gravity. Set it up on jack stands, it floats, and then you push on the nose and it goes down, push on the back and it falls back. And then I laid out the instant center on some software on the computer. And I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and drop this rear bar all the way down and try and get my anti-squat to about 100% or right there at 100% and see if that helps the separation and controlling the separation. So, I mean, we got a decent amount of separation here. I think it's probably around 5 inches of separation. But I don't think it's getting full extension. And it definitely doesn't whenever I have to lock down the rebound. Because if I don't lock it down, then it happens almost instantaneously. But when I lock it down, it almost doesn't happen at all. So changing that bar angle will slow it down. So hopefully I'll get it in a range to where I can actually use that extension and control it. Alright, so I have that change made. Let's see if you can see it. That top bar is now on the bottom hole. Straightens out the top bar a little bit. And hopefully we'll slow down the separation and bring it out a little bit. So, hopefully it'll help. Drop the oil pan, just checking under here, looking for anything weird. Kind of looking at the cam, parts you can see of it. Checking like the wear pattern on it, making sure there's not, you know, any gouges or anything. Trying to Take a look at the cylinder walls. As far as I can tell, everything looks good. Nothing screaming that there's a problem. So that's a good sign. Likely that noise was just that starter gear hitting the flex plate. Now you can see some little spots right here where it's definitely been rubbing. Like some little pieces missing. So I'm probably gonna check the oil filter here in a minute and see what that looks like. I'm gonna check the pan depth to the oil pump pickup. So the pan depth is right at 7.5. We'll see what the oil pump is. Alright, so to the bottom of the pickup is 7 inches. So that means that there's a 1/2 inch underneath the oil pump. Well, I cut the oil filter open. It doesn't look bad. Compared to the one where the bearings were damaged, there were a few concerns in the filter element, but I don't think it's something to worry about. Probably cut the next one open and kind of see if it gets any worse or if there's any more material that shows up. So the oil pan came in. This is the one I decided to go with. It's an 8 1/4 depth pan to the bottom of the sump. It's got a built-in windage tray, the trap door for the oil slosh, and if you'll notice, I've got some lines on it here. I'm going to take this nice brand new oil pan and cut it in half. Take this chunk out so that the oil pickup sits far enough down. Because if I don't have this little bit taken out, about a little over 5/8 of an inch, then the pickup would be around here, and that's a lot of room at the bottom. So I'm gonna cut that chunk out so I have about a little over 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch underneath the pickup. So hopefully I can do a good job welding this. The aluminum, it seems like it's about 11 gauge, so it should be easier to weld than the thin, like say 16 gauge sheet metal or something like that. So I'm gonna cut it and then weld it back together and clean it up, throw it back on the car, or throw it on the car for the first time. All right, I got that sliver cut off. See, it's just enough room above the little trap door and above this this little sump, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what that's called. But anyways, just enough room to get away with what I need to do. And I clean up all these shavings, file up the ends, make it all nice and ready to weld back together. So the last thing I'm going to do this round of modifications is go ahead and change out the fuel pumps. I've got the Aeromotive Dual Phantom 380 liter per hour pumps in here. I'm going to swap those out for a set of Walbro 450 liter per hour pumps. And that'll give me enough fuel to make pretty much as much horsepower as I want to with these turbos and in this setup. So it'll be a much needed upgrade. I don't think it'll be enough to go to E85 if I wanted to. I'll have to calculate and see how much horsepower these pumps can actually safely produce. But I'm gonna go ahead and start reaching away. There it is. Nice, neat little package. And this will just slide right in. Should anyways.